and then I'll share my screen. All right, let me move this. All right, so this will be 3.5 systems of equations. All right, so what I'm going to do is solve my systems of equations by the elimination method. So I'll start out with a 2x3 system with 2 equations and 2 variables, okay? So this elimination method, the first thing you want to do, you want to choose one of the variables to eliminate. Okay, because we'll have x's and y's on this. So I look at the 2 equations and see which one's the easiest to eliminate. Now the way I eliminate them is I'm going to add the 2 equations to eliminate the variable. So I'm going to put a few things under this, because sometimes when you look at these 2 equations and you add them, you cannot eliminate a variable. So what we might have to do is change one of the variables. So if needed, rewrite one or both of the equations in order to eliminate the variable. Okay, because I need one of these to be a positive and one of them to be a negative when I try to eliminate that variable, okay, because I need it to cancel. Alrighty, so here's the thing. If multiplying an equation, we must multiply both sides of the equation. All right, so then I hit number 3. Once I've got one of my variables to be eliminated, I will then solve for the remaining variable. So if I eliminated my y, at this point I'd be solving for my x to see what the value of my x is. Once my variable is solved for, we then do what we call back substituting. So I'm going to back substitute to solve for the remaining variables. All right, then just like any equation, if you need to, check the answers. And then that's if needed. Okay, so we're going to look at these, find a variable that we think is easy to eliminate it, and then we'll come back and solve for the rest of the variables. All right, so these are tricky at first, but then you get used to them and they're not too bad, okay? So I'm going to let y'all write that for a second, and then I'll start my problems. And then here's another rule about these systems. If you got two variables, then you'll have two equations. Then toward the end, we'll get into three variables that'll have three equations, okay? So we're going to start out with some equations with two variables, and then we'll step it up into the college algebra level that has three variables, okay? So we're going to solve by elimination. And then after I do a problem, I'll knock these out on the calculator to show you how to do that also, okay? So we'll do these by hand and the calculator. So my first one, I got a 9x plus an 8y equals 55. Then I got a 3x minus an 8y equals negative 67. So this is my system of equations. I got two equations with two variables. So the first thing we want to figure out is which variable we want to try to eliminate on this one. And if you notice, I've got an 8y and a negative 8y. When you add those together, the y's will cancel out. So the first thing I'm going to do is eliminate the y variable by adding the two equations. Now remember, we're just in the beginning of these, and they're going to be fairly easy to figure out, but later on, these numbers might not match and be opposites, so we're going to have to start changing these equations up a little bit, okay? But this one we're good. So what I'm going to do is add these two equations. So I got 9x's plus 3x will give me 12x. The 8y and the negative 8y, they're going to cancel out for us. So the 12x is going to equal what I get on the right side. So I got what, 55 plus a negative 67 is going to give me a negative 12. So notice, by eliminating the y, I've now got one variable and one equation. So now we want to solve for the x on this. So I got 12x equals a negative 12. What I want to do to solve this is divide both sides by 12. So the 12's cancel, giving me a 1x. And then over here, a negative 12 divided by positive 12 will give me a negative 1. So we now know what x equals. X equals negative 1. So what we want to do is take this negative 1 and plug it in for the x on either one of these two equations. So we're going to back substitute the negative 1 for the x into one of the two variable equations. And it don't matter which one you pick. I sort of look at them and try to find the easiest one. But both of them are fairly similar. So I'm just going to take that first one, and I'm going to bring down my 9, and then my x plus 8 times a y is going to equal 55. And in place of the x, we're going to put the negative 1 that we just got. So now what we got is one variable in this equation that needs solved for. So what we want to do first is multiply the 9 and negative 1 and make that a negative 9 plus my 8y equals 55. All right, to solve that for the y, I'm going to add 9 to both sides. And notice I get 8y equals, what's that, 64. And then the last step, divide by the 8. And y'all look at y equals 64 divided by 8 will give me 8. Now, these answers have to look like ordered pairs, okay? So for your answer, write as an ordered pair. So an ordered pair will look like the x and y. So you'll put your x first and then your y second. So my x was -1. And then my y value gave me a +8. So just remember, in MATLAB, you got to put these in those parentheses, okay? All right, y'all, so how about any questions on that? We're about to do this one by hand on the calculator. So if y'all are ready, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this on the calculator, okay? So let me move this page. So on the calculator, I'm going to use the matrix features of the calculator. And to get to the matrix, I'm going to hit the button that says second and then the x -1. It's on the left side, the second button, and then the x -1. If you look right above it, it says matrix. So these are matrix, and when you put in a matrix, you got to put the rows by columns. Okay, and let me put my problem up here and I'll show you what we're talking about. So I had what, a 9x plus 8y equaled 55. And then I had 3x minus 8y equaled a -67. So the rows are going across. So this one that I have has 2 rows. So when I put it into the calculator, it's going to be 2 rows by 3 columns. Okay, so you'll always have one more column than you do rows. So watch what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hit second x -1 to bring up the matrices. So the first thing we want to do when we're in the matrix is go over to the edit button. So arrow right till you get to the edit button. And then I'm just going to hit enter on A. Now notice the first thing it does, it wants to know the rows by columns. So mine was a 2 by 3, so I would hit 2, enter, by 3, enter. Now what it did, it just gave me, if you can tell, 6 spots down here for my 6 numbers. I got 2 rows and I got the 3 columns, okay? So we'll put in each of these numbers one by one. So I'm going to put a 9 in, enter, 8 in, enter, 55, enter. Notice I'm not using any of the variables, I'm only putting in the numbers. The calculator knows that this is the first column, second column, third column, where my variables and my answers should be, okay? So now the next row I had a 3, enter, -8, enter. So use that negative button when you put in negative numbers, and then -67. So I've got everything in there. Now what I'm going to do is quit by hitting second mode. So put in your numbers, then quit the screen. Now I'm going to go back to the matrix again by hitting second x -1. So go back to the matrix. And I hit second, x negative 1. So we've already got the matrix in there. There's my 2 by 3 matrix it's showing for A. What we want to do is tell it now to solve it. So for the calculator to solve it, you're going to arrow over to the math column. So the math column does all the different operations on this matrix. So if you'll arrow down, I'm looking for RREF. And these should be in order down here. So let me go down here. And I got REF. Now I want RREF. This is actually going to fix the matrix and solve it. So you would hit enter on that, bring it to the screen. Now that we got that on the screen, grab the matrix. In mine, I put in A, so I'm going to grab my matrix A by hitting second, x negative 1. A is highlighted, so hit enter. So on the screen now, you got RREF, and then your matrix A. We're going to hit enter and get our answers. So here's how this works. Since this first column was the x variable and the second column was the y variable, the last column was the answers. Since you got a 1 in the first column, that means that 1x equaled the negative 1, and then the 1y equaled the positive 8. So your answers will always be in the last column, and you'll just come in and put negative 1, comma 8, put it in those parentheses like ordered pair, and be done. So y'all might not need that calculator as much on the 2 by 3s, but we're going to do some 3 by 4s toward the end of the class, and those can be a little trickier, okay? All right, so let's turn it up a little bit and see what we can do. 5x plus 4y equals negative 13. 4x minus a y equals negative 2. So that would be my little system of equations. And if you notice, if I add the 5x and the 4x, I get a 9x. If I add the 4y and the negative y, I get 3y. So I wasn't able to eliminate nothing right off the bat. But I'm going to figure out which one of these might be the easiest to eliminate. And y'all, I'm going to eliminate these y's. So I'm going to eliminate the y, because to me that looks easiest, because all I got to do is change this second equation to get a negative 4 here. Okay, if I tried to get rid of the x's, I'd have to change both of those equations, because 5 and 4s have nothing in common other than what, a 20. So you would have to rewrite both of those to look like 20s. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the second equation by 4. If I multiply this whole second equation by 4, that'll then make that a negative 4y, and the negative 4y will cancel with the positive 4y. So we're going to take the whole second equation and multiply by 4. So let me rewrite my first equation. I had 5x plus 4y equal negative 13. Now when we multiply by the 4, everybody's going to multiply by that 4. So 4 by 4 gave you 16x. 4 times a negative y makes that a negative 4y. And then 4 times negative 2 made that a negative 8. So now if you look at this, I can now eliminate those y's. So I'm going to add the two equations. So let's see what we get over here. 5 and 16 give me what? 21 x's. These y's are going to cancel. And then that's a negative something. Let's see, 13 and 8. What's that? 21. So I get a negative 21. I tell you, you can pretty much tell you're doing these right if that last variable looks like it's going to divide out nicely, okay? I haven't been getting any fractional answers or decimals on these. So now I'm going to solve for the x. So one variable, one equation. So 21x equals negative 21. I'm going to divide both sides by the 21 so that my x is going to equal, what's that, a negative 1. So now you're going to back substitute. We know x equals negative 1, so I'm just going to pick that first equation. I got 5 times my x plus 4 times my y is going to equal a negative 13. Right, and we said the x was what? Negative 1. So the first thing we'll do is figure out what that equaled. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5 plus 4y is going to equal a negative 13. So y'all, to solve this, let's add 5 to both sides. And I get a 4y. Let's see, bigger number is negative. And then 13 minus 5 is what, 8. So 4y equals negative 8. Divide both sides by 4. And it looks like my y is going to equal a negative 2. So remember, when I put my answer in, I'm going to put my x first, which is a negative 1. And then my y value was a negative 2. So I'm going to do another one I'm going to do this one on the calculator to get y'all more practice doing that. So if y'all got that, I'm going to pull this down just a little bit so I can see the actual problem. So remember, I'm going to go to second x negative 1 to get my matrix, and then go to edit. You got to do edit the first thing and hit enter. Now this is still a 2 by 3, so I'm going to hit enter on the 2, enter on the 3. Now I'm getting to where I need my numbers. So I'm going to put in my 5, enter, 4, enter, negative 13, enter. My next equation was a 4, enter. There's not a number in front of the y, so that's going to be a negative 1, enter, and then a negative 2, enter. The only time you'll have a 0 on here is if that variable is totally gone, okay? All right, so remember what I said? I said quit that screen. And then we got to go get the RREF by hitting second, x negative 1, go over to the math button and arrow down till we find RREF. Whoops. So RREF, hit enter. So now it's going to reduce the matrix. So go back, second x negative 1, hit enter, because that's where I put mine in A again. And y'all, we should get a negative 1, negative 2. On the right side, there's my x, and there's my y. So y'all might love that little program once y'all get doing these problems, okay? All right, so next. All right, y'all, 4x minus 9y equals 10.5. 7x, whoops, time out, that was a 7y. 7y minus 2x equals a negative 6.5. So remember, that was a 7y minus 2x on this one. Well, guess what? The first thing I'm going to do is rearrange the second equation. Because y'all, it's got the y's where the x's should go and the x where the y's should go. So we need to rearrange the second equation. So I'm going to have 4x minus 9y equals 10.5. Negative 2x plus 7y is going to equal a negative 6.5. Okay, so you got to have these in the right order. So watch out. Number 3 is going to put them out of order. You got to put them in order before you can actually work it. And you even have to put these in order before you can do it on the calculator. You got to have the x's in the first column, y's in the second column, and then your solutions. So I'm looking at this. I can't get rid of the x's. I can't get rid of the y's right off the bat. So I'm looking at which ones might be easier to change. And I'm looking at these x's because I can turn this into a negative 4 pretty quick. That'll cancel with a positive 4. If you did this one, you'd have to find the smallest number that 9 and 7 would both go into. Woo, and that'd be like a 63. So that's a lot of changing. So what I'm going to do is multiply second equation by 2. Because that'll turn that into what? A negative 4x. So let's take this whole second equation, multiply by 2. So my first equation will stay the same. 4x minus 9y is going to equal 10.5. The second equation, 2 times negative 2, makes that a negative 4x. 2 times 7y makes that a positive 14y. 2 times a negative 6.5 is what? A negative 13, I think, right? All right, so now I've got it to where I can get rid of the x. So y'all watch this. 4x and negative 4x, those are going to cancel. 14y negative 9y will give me a 5y. And then let's see what we get here. Negative 13 plus 10.5 is going to give me a negative 2.5. So this will be the only problem you're going to get decimals on, is the one where they started with the decimals. So we're going to finish this out by dividing both sides by 5. So that we now know negative 2.5 divided by 5 is going to give me a negative 0.5. Or that could be a 0.5, whichever way you want to do it. So I know what the y is. So now I got to take that, plug it back into one of my equations so I can solve it for my x. So let's back substitute. And then I'll do this one on the calculator to show you. It don't mind decimals, okay? So I'm going to do the first one. I got 4 times x minus 9 times my y has to equal 10.5. And I know the y was what? A negative 0.5. So I'm going to multiply that first. Now that negative times negative is going to make that a positive. 9 times 0.5 is going to give me 4.5, all equal to the 10.5. All right, y'all, what about moving this number over by subtracting 4.5? So let's see what we get. We get our 4x. 4.5s are going to cancel. 10.5 minus 4.5 should give me a 6. Y'all did last step, divide by 4. So let's see, 6 divided by 4 is going to give me 1.5. So my answer was what? 1.5 for my x, and then a negative 0.5 for my y. All right, so remember, if you did do this one on this calculator, you got to rearrange that second row no matter what. So this is the numbers I need to put in. So I'm going to go to Edit, Enter. It's a 2 by 3. So I had a 4, negative 9, 10.5. Then I had a negative 2, 7, negative 6.5. So remember, I entered all those, and then I quit the screen. I then went to get the RREF by hitting second, x negative 1, going over to math, and arrowing down till I get the RREF, enter. Now go back and get the matrix. Second, x negative 1, enter. And then there we go, 1.5 for my x, and then my negative 0.5 for my y. I'm going to love that calculator before long, right? All right, let's see. Right, so let me see. This is going to be the last of the 2 by 3 systems, and then we're going to get into the 3 by 4s. So this one has 5x plus 2y equals 36. 2x plus 5y is going to equal 48. So look at it. Both of these got 2's and 5's. So it don't matter which variable I try to get rid of. It's going to be a little tedious because I'm going to have to change, it looks like 2 rows on this, okay? So, x's or y's, it don't matter to me on this one. I think I'll do I'll eliminate the y's. But notice, there's not a single number I can multiply 2 by to make a 5. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to change both equations. Okay? Now, one of these has to be multiplied by a negative because you have to have a negative and a positive. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the first equation and multiply by 5. 5 times 2 will give me a positive 10. The second equation, I'm going to multiply by a negative 2 because negative 2 times 5 will make that a negative 10, okay? So let's rewrite our rows. 5 times 5 is 25x. 5 times 2 give you 10y. And then 5 times 36 is 180. Now let's do the same thing here. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4x. Negative 2 times 5y is a negative 10y. And then let's see, negative 2 times 48 is a negative 96. So the most work you'll have to do is sometimes you got to change both the equations. And basically, I was just finding the least common denominator between 2 and 5, which was 10. Okay? So let's see what happens here. 25 minus 4 gave you 21 x's. The y's cancel. And let's see, 180 minus 96 is going to give us 84. All right, so one equation, one variable. I'm going to divide both sides by 21. And x is definitely, looks like a 4. So now that I know x is 4, I'm going to back substitute. So y'all, I'll just do that first when I got 5 times x, which will be 4, plus 2 times y is going to equal 36. So notice I'm going back to the original ones because they're usually smaller. After you change them, these numbers get pretty big. All right, what did we say? X was 4. All right, so that's going to give me 20 plus 2y equals 36. I would solve this by subtracting that 20. So y'all, we get 2y, because those cancel. 36 minus 20 will be what, 16? And then finish out by dividing by 2. So we now know that our y, let's see, 16 divided by 2 will give us 8. So this one would be 4, and then your 8. So I'll probably wait till I do the 3 ones to hit them on the calculator again, okay? But watch this, y'all. Take these numbers. Put that 4 in for that x. 5 times 4 is 20. Then 2 times 8 is 16. And 20 plus 16 is going to equal 36. So if you check them, just plug your numbers in and see what you get, okay? Alrighty, so we're going to get into a system of 3 equations. So let me pull up. So system of 3 equations. So y'all, a system of 3 equations is going to look something like a x plus a y plus a z equals some number. And what will happen when you got 3 variables, you're going to need 3 equations to solve these. And also the solutions are now what we call ordered triples. The answers will look like a B, and a C. Okay? So it's going to have 3 variables, and then it's going to have 3 answers on that final answer, okay? And now we'll keep these in order. The X's will be in the first column, Y is in the second column, and the Z's. And no matter what letters they give me, I always try to keep them in some kind of order, okay? So, y'all ready to jump on to the big ones? Now, let me write my first problem up here. X plus Y plus Z is going to equal a -4. 2x plus 4y plus 2z is going to equal 2. Then I got a -x plus 7y minus 3z equals 56. So let me verify my numbers real quick. X, Y, Z, -4, 2, 4, 2, 2, and then -1, 7, -3, 56. All right, so my numbers are matching. So these are a little tricky. Now, I'm going to name these equations, equation 1, equation 2, and equation 3. That way y'all can sort of keep up with what I'm doing with these, okay? So we got to pick one of these variables that we think will be the easiest to eliminate. Now, in order to eliminate one of the variables, I've got to add two of these together at a time, but I've got to use all three of them. So I'm going to do so what I mean by that, if I use the first two equations the first time to get rid of the variable, I've then got to use equation 3 with one of these two equations to get rid of the same variable. It takes 2 times the add to get rid of one variable because we got 3 equations. So to me, it would be easiest to probably get rid of the x's the easiest, because on these I can do these fairly easy. Also the z's, but y'all, the x's is really easy. Because if I add the first row with the last row, I'm getting rid of the x's right off the bat, right? So what I'm going to do is add 1 and 3 to get rid of x. So I'm going to do that here, and then I'll do the second side here. So equation 1 was x plus y plus z equal to -4. Equation 3 is a -x plus a 7y minus a 3z equaled 56. So that was equation 1 and equation 3. But notice what happens. The x is gone. 1y plus 7y is 8y. 1z negative 3z's gives me a -2z. And then 56 and a -4 give me 52. This new equation, I'm going to call that my fourth equation. Alrighty. No matter what, since I did 1 and 3 that time, this time I got to add row 2, which is a positive 2x. So what I think I'll do on this one, since that's a 2x, and this one's a -x, if I change this row to a -2, I can add them and get rid of it. If I picked the first one to use, I would have had to multiply by -2 on that one because it's positive and that one was positive. So remember, you had to use row 2 this time, and I'm going to do a changed row 3. So I'm going to add 2 and a changed row 3. To change row 3, I'm going to multiply the whole row by a 2. Okay, so 2 times -1 will make that a -2. That's going to cancel with that really quick. So let's bring down row 2, which was 2x plus 4y plus 2z equals 2. Now remember, we're changing this row now, so 2 times -x is a -2x. 2 times 7 is a 14y. 2 times -3 is a -6z. And then 2 times 56 is 112. All right, so that's what I meant. You have to use all 3 rows in any combination to get rid of these variables, okay? So the x's are gone. What do you got here? 4y, 14y is 18y. 2z and -6 will give me a -4z. And then 2 and 112 give us 114. I'm going to call that row 5. So my 2 rows that I make are 4 and 5. But y'all watch what I'm going to do. 8y minus 2z equals 52. And then this one was a 18y minus 4z equaled 114. That was your row 4 and 5. They make up a new system of equations, which is a 2 by 3 now. So now what you got to do is figure out which one of these variables you want to cancel. And y'all, I'm going to be picky. I'm going to eliminate the z's on this one. Okay? So what I'm going to do is add 5 to a changed 4. Now, since this is -4 and that's -2, I'm going to have to multiply this whole row by a -2. Because that -2 and -2 will make that a +4. And a +4 will cancel with a -4. So let's multiply this whole row by the -2. So we get a -16y. Negative times negative makes that a +4z. And then 52 times -2 is what? A -104. Row 5 I didn't change. So 18y minus 4z equals 114. So watch this. -16 and 18 give you 2y. The z's cancel. -104, +114 will give me a +10. And then final step, divide these both by 2 so that I know y is going to equal 5. So now, we're going to back substitute. But y'all watch this. This y equals 5 is going to have to substitute into one of these equations. So I'll put a 5 in for the y, see what I get for the z. Then I'll know what the y and z equals. Then I can plug them back into one of these 3 equations and get my x. So I'm going to have to use the other side real quick. So if y'all got this page, I'm going to move on. Oh, I'll just work on the sides here. All right, so I'm going to take this equation, 8 times my y, which is 5, minus 2z is going to equal 52. All right, so that's going to give me 40 minus 2z equals 52. To solve that, what are we going to do? Minus the 40. So y'all watch this. -2z. 52 minus 40, what's that going to give me? 12. And then divide by -2. So that I know my z is going to equal, what's that going to be? A -12 divided by 2, -6. So I now know y is 5, z is -6. So I'm going to let y'all catch that up real quick. Oh, my paper. I must have wet palms. My paper always curling. Okay, so I'm going to back substitute that one right here. So I'm still got to back substitute. But so I don't have to go to the back of my paper, I'm going to back substitute it here. I don't know the x yet, so I got my x. I do know y. Y was 5. So that's going to be x plus 5 plus my z. Well, I know my z is what, a -6. That's all going to equal a -4. So I would add these like terms. So x, 5 minus 6 makes that a -1. All that's going to equal -4. And y'all finally just add 1 to both sides. So that I know x will equal -4 plus 1 is a -3. So your final answer would be -3 for the x. What I get? 5 for the y. And then -6 for the z. And then watch this. -3 plus 5. Whoops, where am I at? -3 plus 5 is 2. 2 minus 6 is going to give me a -4. So any of these, if you plug them back in, will definitely give you the right answers. All right. I'm going to show you that one on the calculator. So this is where you love your calculator. So go to second, x -1 to pull up that matrix. go to edit, and then hit enter. Notice this is 3 rows by 4 columns. So this will now be a 3 enter, 4 enter. Notice what it did. It made an extra row and column for my new problem, okay? So x plus y plus z would be a 1 enter, 1 enter, 1 enter, negative 4 enter. Then I go to the next row, which has a 2, 4, 2, and then what, a positive 2. Now I'm on the bottom row. Negative x is a negative 1 enter, 7, negative 3 enter, and then my 56. So I'm just going to the original equations. Now, here's the thing. When you put a negative number on this calculator, you better use that negative right there. If you use the subtraction, it will definitely give you an error on that, okay? All right, then what I do, I quit the screen. Now I have to go get the operation to RREF. So second, x negative 1. That's in the math column, and then arrow down. Let's see, RREF, enter. Go get the matrix, second, x negative 1. It's already on my 3x4a, so hit enter. So if you notice, you got to do second, x negative 1 3 times on that to do these problems, okay? All right, now hit enter. Hopefully I get a negative 3, 5, and a negative 6 on the side. So see, this was the x column, so 1x was negative 3. The y column, 1y was 5. The z column, 1z was negative 6. So that problem right there, plus, y'all, you can do 4x5s on the matrix, 5x6s. I guess if you get into calculus, you can do the big ones, okay? All right, y'all, so woo, it looks like break time, so let me see. We just did that one right there. So I'm gonna stop our share and let us do a break real quick. Start that back. All right, so we're going to continue with the 3x4 equations. So this one, y'all, I have a 5x minus a y plus a z is going to equal a negative 13. 3x plus 2y minus 3z is going to equal a negative 16. And then an x minus 3y plus 2z is going to equal 0. So let me call these 1, 2, and 3 again. All right, so any of these variables would work. I'm trying to figure out what I think would be the easiest for me. And y'all, really any of these variables would work. So let me see. So hell, one of y'all pick a letter to get rid of. X's, Y's, or Z's? Oh, I can't hear y'all. Y'all too quiet.
Z.
Z's?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to eliminate the Z. So I'm going to start with, I guess, row 1 and 2. So I'm going to add. But notice, 1 and 2, I got a positive Z and a negative 3Z. So what I'm going to do is change row 1. So I'm going to add a changed 1 to row 2. So since that's a negative 3Z, we're going to have to take row 1 and multiply everybody by a 3. That way I can get a 3Z. That'll cancel with that negative 3Z. So 5 times 3 will give me 15x 3 times negative y gives me a negative 3y. 3 times z gives me a positive 3z. And then 3 times negative 13 gives me a negative 39. Then we'll bring in row 2, which was 3x plus 2y minus 3z equal negative 16. So when I add these, remember that'll be my row 4 that I get, okay? All right, so let's see what happens. 15 and 3 gave me 18 x's. Negative 3y plus 2y gave me a negative 1y. The z's canceled, and this is going to equal, let's see, a negative 39 plus a negative 16. This will be what, negative 55. All right, so I got row 4. Now I'm going to work on row 5. So we're getting rid of z's still. So let me move that out of the way, that 3, because I'm going to change it now. This one has a positive 2z. This has a 1z. So to get the z's to cancel with 1 and 3, I'm going to multiply row 1 by a negative 2 this time. So I'm going to add a changed row 1 to row 3. So remember, these two sets of equations we add, any combination we can do, but we got to use all 3 equations, okay? So I used 1 and 2 here, so I had to use 3 on this one, so I picked 3 and 1. So I'm going to change 1 by multiplying by negative 2, so I get a negative 10x. Negative times negative makes that a positive 2y. Negative 2 times z is a negative 2z. And then negative 2 times negative 13 is a positive 26. Now let's bring down this row. X minus 3y plus 2z equals 0. When I add them, that's going to be my row 5. All right, y'all, negative 10 and 1 give you negative 9x. 2y and a negative y give you a negative 1y. The z's canceled, and that's going to equal 26. So let me bring these two together. And then that was what, a negative 9x minus y equaled 26. So y'all, if you notice, I can't get rid of the x's and I can't get rid of the y's as they stand. So what I'm going to do is multiply one of these by a negative 1 to change it from a negative to a positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my row 4 here and my row 5. I'm going to add 4 to a changed 5. And what I'm going to do on 5 is multiply everybody by a negative 1. So my first equation stays the same. 18x minus y equals negative 55. The second row, I'm going to multiply everybody by negative 1. That's going to change all 3 signs. So I get a 9x plus a y equals a negative 26. So that's the power of a negative. It changes signs, okay? All right, watch this. 18 and 9 is 27x. The y's cancel. Negative 55 plus a negative 26 gives me a negative 81. All righty, dividing that by 27 means that my x will now equal a, what's that, a negative 3. So x is negative 3. I'm now going to back substitute. So remember, you back substitute in one of these two equations. So I'll just pick that first one. I got 18 times x, which is negative 3, minus my y has to equal a negative 55. So let's see, 18 times negative 3 is what? Negative 54 minus my y equals negative 55. All right, y'all, add 54 to both sides. So notice what that does. That gives me a negative y. Negative 55 and 54 is going to be a negative 1. But remember, y can't stay negative, so we got to divide both sides by negative 1. So that makes that a positive y equal to a positive 1. And then finally, I'm going to back substitute into one of the original 3 equations that I had at the top. So I'll just do that first one. I had 5 times my x minus my y of 1. So my x was what? Negative 3. Plus my z has to equal negative 13. So I just went back into the first equation. All right, y'all, 5 times negative 3 is negative 15 minus 1 plus z equals negative 13. I'm going to add the like terms. So negative 16 plus z equals negative 13. And then the final step, add 16 to both sides. So that z is going to equal negative 13 and 16 is a 3. So let me put my answer right here. So my x was negative 3. My y was a positive 1. My z was a positive 3. Okay, so put them numbers in and it would actually spit it out quick. All right, so I'm going to let y'all write that a second. All right, so I got one more of these, and then I'll see what y'all need on homework and stuff. All right, so let me get that pulled up. All right, let me read these. I got an 8r minus a s plus a t is going to equal 17. Then I got a 3r plus 2s minus 3t is going to equal 26. Then we got an r minus 3s plus 2t equals a negative 15. So once again, that's 1, 2, and 3. All right, so I would say on this one, you can do any 3 of these, but I think it would be easier with the S's or the T's. Yeah, so either way. So I think this time I'm going to eliminate. Let's see, last time I eliminated the last letter. So this time I'll do the middle one. I'm going to eliminate the S's. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do, since that's a negative 1s and that's a positive 2s, I'm going to multiply this row by a 2. That way, that'll give me a negative 2s. That'll add to the positive 2s. So I'm going to add a changed 1 to my second row. So if we multiply this whole row by 2, I get a 16r minus my 2 s's plus 2t's, and then 17 times 2 would give me 34. Now bring down the second row, 3r plus 2s minus 3t equals 26. So when we add that, that's going to give me my row 4. All right, y'all, let's see what happens here. 16 and 3 gave you 19r. The s's canceled. 2t minus 3t left you a negative t. And then 34 and 26 is 60. Now over here, I'm going to play with, remember, I got to use row 3 this time. Row 3 is a negative 3s. So I think I'm going to change this row 1. Since that's a negative s, I'm going to have to multiply that row by a negative 3 to make that a positive 3s, okay? So I'm going to add a changed 1 to my row 3. So if I multiply that by the negative 3, negative 3 times 8 is negative 24r. Negative 3 times negative s is a positive 3s. Negative 3 times t is a negative 3t. Negative 3 times 17 is a negative 51. Now bring in row 3, which was r minus 3s plus 2t equal negative 15. When we're done, that'll be row 5. All right, so what happens here? Negative 24 plus 1 is a negative 23r. S's cancel. Negative 3t, positive 2t leaves me a negative t. And then negative 51 and negative 15 is what? A negative 66. So y'all, let me bring them two together. Here's 4 and 5. 19r minus t equaled 60. Negative 23r minus t equal to negative 66. So it looks like I'm going to get rid of the t's here. But in order to get rid of the t's, I got to multiply one of these by a negative. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply this second row by a negative 1. So I'm going to add row 4 to a changed row 5. So that'll give me my 19r minus t equals 60. Multiplying this row by negative 1 makes that a 23r plus a t equals a positive 66. All right, y'all, so let me add that. 19 plus 23 should be 42r. T's cancel. 60 and 66 is 126. All right, so I'm happy I'm down to one variable. So to solve that, I'm going to divide both sides by 42. So let's see, that's going to give me 3 for my r. So we now know r is 3. We can now back substitute. So I got to go to one of my two equations here. So y'all, I'll just use that top one. I got 19 times r, which is 3, minus a t has to equal 60. Now let's see, 19 times 3 is 57, minus t equals 60. So next we would probably subtract that 57. And y'all look at this, I got a negative t. That's going to be positive 3. But once again, we cannot leave the t negative, so divide both sides by negative 1 so that the t equals a negative 3. So r is a positive 3, t is a negative 3. I'm going to substitute into that. Looks like, I think I'll do the second one since that s is positive. I'm going to plug into the second one and solve for the s. So I got 3 times r, which is 3, plus 2 s's minus 3 times negative 3 for my t has to equal 26. Now, like I said, it didn't matter which one of those you picked. I just like to keep my s's positive on some of these so I don't have to keep doing that -1 stuff. All right, so let's see what we got. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2s. -3 times -3 is a 9. That's going to equal 26. So what I would do next is add the like terms. 18 plus 2s is going to equal 26. Subtract 18 from both sides. So 2s, 26 minus 18 is 8. And y'all finally divide by 2. So that s is going to equal 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, what you got to watch out on this problem is, remember, we got to put the r first, then the s, then the t. So the r was 3, s was the 4, and then t was a -3. Then y'all, if y'all plug that into them equations, it will work. So I'm going to hit the calculator one more time on this for y'all. And to make sure y'all got these on the calculator, so I'm going to move back up until my problem was right there. So remember, we go second x -1 over to edit to put in our new equation. We got 3 rows by 4 columns still. Now we got a 8, -1, 1, 17. So you got to get used to them missing ones on these, okay? Then you got a 3, 2, -3, 26. Then you hit the next row. And also, if you notice, this over here is telling me, hey, you're on the 3rd row, 1st column. So on the 3rd row, 1st column, I got a 1 enter. Now it's wanting the 2nd column, which is a -3 enter. 3rd column, which was a 2 enter. And then the last column was a -15. Hit enter. So all my numbers are in my matrix. I'm going to quit by hitting second mode to quit. I now need to go to second x -1 over to math and then down to RREF. Enter. Go back and get the matrix now. Second x -1. It's already highlighted 1 for A, so just hit enter. So once again, remember, you got to go in there 3 times. Now hit enter, and hopefully we get a 3, 4, and a -3. All right, y'all, so let me stop my sharing. And then I'll actually stop this video. So that's it for today as far as new material.